Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Michael virtual event. In today's session, we are going to cover transformation of branch and home office network using SD-WAN. Lovely to see a lot of participants. I can see from folks from UK, Middle East. Great. My name is Karthikeyan Krishnan. Go by KK for short. I'm the head of EMEA Geo for Microland. I will be your host for this session today. I also have the two wonderful speakers for today's session. Dimitri Sandu, Senior Partner Solution Engineer from VMware, Bob Wysocki, Senior Vice President and Global Client Solutions Leader, Network and Cybersecurity from Microland. Both are not only going to share their knowledge, but also going to answer your questions. So if you are planning for a SD-WAN transformation, whether you are thinking of which way to start or you are in the midst of the transition, please use this opportunity, raise all your questions. And I'm sure you will have some interesting takeaway from this session. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping points for your information. This session is a one-way voice-only session. The audience voice and webcam is disabled. This is to avoid background noise and distractions. Q&A option is available throughout the session. Please feel free to ask your questions. You can post these questions on chat window. We will try to answer all of them in the Q&A session allocated time. If we are unable to answer any questions due to lack of time, we will respond to you over an email. We will also be sharing all the slide packs being presented today, so do not worry to take notes. Also, there is a survey at the end of the session that will qualify you to receive an Amazon Echo Show. Before I hand over the session to our speakers, I'm going to cover a quick overview of the challenges and why SD-WAN. Well, the picture sounds very familiar. Overnight, users' access to enterprise resources have changed completely. Most of the application resources used to sit within the corporate data center or on the cloud connected to the data center. Over 80% of your employees accessed these resources from the enterprise LAN. The current pandemic situation changed it all. Enterprises are now faced with challenges to provide secure network access to thousands of new home offices, all while assuring an application performance. Well, our friends in the networking and cybersecurity area will have lots of stories to share about these challenges. Whether we are ready or not, this is the new normal. And what you see are the few challenges in those new normal. If you can access your business application on the cloud directly from your branch office or from your home offices, why your network traffic has to go to your data center and then be routed to the cloud? Traffic going into your data center and coming out of the data center from the same network to access your network, to access your cloud resource is called as happening, and this increases latency. Traditional branch office network links do not understand the application traffic, and cloud potentially give the same and can potentially give the same importance to all, whether it is your team accessing core business application or someone accessing a YouTube channel. So what is the solution? The solution is the SD-WAN that takes the hairpinned traffic and associated delays out of the data center. SD-WAN also identifies application traffic, applies quality of service policies and path selections to provide direct, reliable, high performance access from any location to your application, whether it resides on your data center or on the cloud. SD-WAN infrastructure not only resolves these key challenges, which are technical in nature, but also results in significant cost savings. Some of our customers have saved as much as 80% compared to the traditional network infrastructure. Because of these cost and performance savings, the market has grown up to, the SD-WAN global market has grown up to 1.9 million and is expected to reach staggering 8.4 billion in 2025, which is a CAGR of 35%. Already 20% of the global 2000 companies have implemented SD-WAN. All this is because not only the COVID situation, but also because of the branch office calls. But when COVID hit, everything has changed. changed to a significant situations. As you can see some of the data points here, 48% of the employees will likely to continue working from home even after the COVID situation gets better. 77% of the execs believe allowing the employees to continue to work from home means saving in operational costs. So this is the reality. It is here to stay, right? So how does the new extended and more, before I get into that, the new challenges when employees started working from home has brought back the same brand challenges into the home office challenges, right? And how could it be resolved? Extending the SD-WAN features to the remote users and home office users. That is the best way to do, which includes giving the shortest path, internet breakouts, prioritizing applications, giving a dynamic path optimization, and so on. So those are the key challenges, and I'm sure both of these going to be spoken very in detail by Dimitri and Bob. So with that, I will hand over the session to Dimitri.
Thanks ever so much, KK, and for this nice intro, and also thanks everybody for joining today. Before kind of focusing on the work from home offering, and I do apologize. Oh, I think yes, that's perfect. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes to talk about VeloCloud in itself, right? Because you know, VeloCloud is one of the first businesses and first startups that started to address SD-WAN back in 2013 and 2014, and the main business for us at VeloCloud was and remains to be able to offer people easy and optimal way to reach their resources, whatever that might be, still in your own on-prem data center or in the cloud itself. Again, most traditional networks, as KK mentioned, are designed in a hub and spoke architecture, right? So we have our on-premise data center at the core, we have all our remote offices connected with private lines, and that type of architecture sufficed for a long time, because if you think about this, traditionally, we haven't done much across the internet. Everything that we used to do was based on our device in front of us trying to connect to an application or a workload inside our own on-premise data center. But in the last few years, with digitalization, things have changed dramatically. First of all, we see a proliferation of devices at the branch, right? Whatever that's employees bringing their own devices, guests, IoT, etc., and they all converge on the same links, right? What is the purpose of transporting all that data back to the data center and even spending a lot of money on those private circuits to do so, right? When actually most of the traffic is not going there anyway. So one of the main kind of key aspects of the SD-WAN adoption was the move to use different types of circuits, including the internet, right? Over the last few years, internet has become widely available, much more stable as well, and much more bandwidth rich than private connectivity, but inherently it's still a medium that is unreliable, right? So if I just rely on the internet to transfer data across, nobody will be able to guarantee any sort of level of service. So VeloCloud created this solution in which, you know, with a device local, what we call an edge, and a device on the other side in kind of the on-premise data center or nearby kind of SaaS and IaaS providers, will be able to protect that business critical traffic, right? So now it doesn't really matter what type of connectivity you have at the site, because we'll be able to use all these circuits and also decide based on performance what circuit is best for what application. So this is very critical, because back in the old days, the way that we route was very kind of active standby fashion, or maybe active, right? We always had to wait for the link to go down altogether before routing the traffic away. But how does that work with our you know, real-time applications with voice and video? The link can still be up, but degraded enough for them not to function properly. So looking at the challenges that we faced previously with SaaS and IaaS, now we can add a new one as well, and that is this massive work from home, which I think a year ago, like, companies were not really kind of embracing it. There are very few roles, and people were even looked at funny when they said, "Oh, you know, I work from home mostly." They'll be like, "Oh, do you really?" But I think in the last year, at least, we realized that, you know, all of us are actually capable to do most of our job remotely. And again, as KK emphasized, this is here to stay. So this is where I want to kind of turn the table and ask you for the first question. I'll launch a poll here, and you have 30 seconds to reply. When your remote force returns to the office, what percentage of your employees do you believe will remain working from home mostly? I see a couple of votes coming in. We'll keep this open for a little while longer before closing. So yes, again, what percentage of your workers will mostly remain at home? So just a mind, we'll close the poll and kind of share the results. Okay, so you see here, not 100%. Well, that's yeah, that's understandable. But funny enough, yeah, not a lot that believe that most of us will go back to work, right? So it's great to assume that, you know, kind of in average, 40 to 60, 60% will stay at home. Oh, apologies. My slide deck has gone a bit AWOL here. Thank you for that. Just a slight delay from the platform. So with this in mind, let's figure out how VMware is trying to solve this challenge of remote workers. And we have a couple of solutions, and the way that we thought internally to kind of describe them and help you understand which one would be better for you is to kind of break down your users into power and non-power users, right? And the list that you see in front of you, right, is not really you know, set in stone. So each organization will have different users that, you know, even like 5 or 10 minutes of that network at home not working would be a problem. But these are kind of the key categories of people, right? So we have the execs, we have people in the ops teams that need to make sure that they are able to monitor and troubleshoot the network no matter what. Call center employees or anybody who kind of maintains that relationship with the customer. I don't know about yourselves, but I'm sometimes frustrated calling companies and they all have this very strange auto attendant saying, sorry, because of COVID, you know, our lines are extremely busy. Like, why? You had like 6 months to sort this out, right? So not, you know, as a customer, as an end customer myself, I don't really feel great about that experience. Then we have healthcare professionals, because these days, you know, especially in the UK, for example, you don't go to see the doctor unless, you know, they need to have a look at you. But they can, you know, they can do that via video. You know, if they have a good resolution, you know, they'll be able to do most of the things remotely, right? And this means faster diagnosis and also made in a way that's, you know, safer. And last but not least, think about teachers as well. I mean, yeah, you know, when schools closed, you know, that was a bad thing because, you know, as much as we can, we should be able to maintain that connection with, you know, between the school children and the school, right? We cannot miss a generation going on without, you know, without a few years of school. Now, how do we address the power users? How do we address these people in your organization that need that resiliency, right? Need that that optimal experience. We do that by taking our smallest appliance, so that's the H510, and treating the home office as a small branch. So what do I mean by that? I mean that actually, if you think about this, right, how many devices you have connected at home? Because I'm sure that if you count you underestimate, right? You're not going to count your Ring doorbell, your Philips Hue lights, and all these 10 devices that sit in your drawer and are always connected to the Wi-Fi, right? The router that you use and your service provider is giving you, that's not meant for business use, right? It's meant to simply give a slice of the pie for whoever asks it, right? And indiscriminately, first in, first out, onwards upstream, right? It will not be able to differentiate between your business critical Skype or Teams call and your significant other watching Netflix in 4K and downstairs. So we need to first of all solve this issue in the LAN, in which we securely segment the work and home devices and make sure that we prioritize what's important and deprioritize the rest, but also get rid of any last mile issues, right? Because I'm stuck at home, but so are my neighbors, right? So as we go onwards and aggregate in, the cabinet down the street and the exchange in the neighborhood, this is where things go wrong. If there's something going wrong with the WAN network, I can guarantee you 90+% of the time it goes on in this last mile because of congestion and because of this strain over the network. So what does congestion mean? It means that the packets get, the packets and the data get delayed or get dropped altogether. So this negatively impacts the end user experience wherever they're going, right? So the call doesn't happen, the video is all shaky, the downloads take forever to happen, uploads the same. How much you spend on app modernization, and everybody's figuring, oh, do I have the latest device? Do I have the latest app in my data center? But how many of us are actually thinking about what glues them together, which is the network, right? You spend so much money trying to give your workforce something to, for them to be more proactive, to be productive. But if the underlying network does not allow them to use the tools properly, guess what they're going to do? Not use the tool after they tried it a few times and had bad experiences. So the idea for us to treat this, this as a small branch, this means that, again, as per any other branch, you use VeloCloud and kind of the power of SD-WAN and this fabric to reach everything, your on-prem data center, cloud data centers, and any sort of SaaS applications as well. This is the device. It's actually very small. You see there a few antennas as well, because it does come with Wi-Fi enabled, right? So there is no need to physically plug in, although you can do that. And even nicer, it doesn't actually require you to start messing with your provider router, right? So although this can replace your provider router, the easiest way, we just plug it in the back of it, right? The model that you see on the right-hand side, the 510 LTE, even allows you to slot a SIM card in it, right? I have this similar setup just next to me. So, if my broadband misbehaves or even goes down altogether, you won't even notice on the other side, because the box can do sub-second routing. And when everything is fine, if I don't mind the cost, it can even aggregate the links. So my throughput at home is basically doubled. So you start to understand now why, if I was a power user, I would like to have one of these at home. And a couple of examples here. This is one of the tests that we have been running on Office 365 on a brownout link. So this is a link that's still up, but not behaving properly. And besides the speeds and feeds, I mean, if you're a more technical person, you'll be like, ooh, tell me the bandwidth, etc., right? This actually means that the person at the other end actually had a good experience. Again, I'm sure all of us had those bad experiences while trying to do some work, being under pressure, trying to solve something, and this thing in front of you just does not work. And again, another thing to re-emphasize that I think more and more of the things that we use today, right, are real time, from Office 365, VDI, voice video, and they're very, very susceptible, right? So a voice call, when the line loses more than 2% of the packets, it will just not go through. So as you can imagine, you need a solution there to guarantee that if this happens, there are ways to remediate or reroute traffic on other channels. Now, with this in mind, we park the power users on one side. What do we do with the others, right? Because most likely it's not financially feasible to roll this out across your entire workforce. Also, people might be moving, right? So they might be visiting a customer in a normal time, right? Or they might be on a train, etc. And they still need to have access to all the resources, no matter where they are. Now, for the VeloCloud team, this was actually quite an interesting development, because our platform doesn't natively have this client VPN capability, right? To point your device here, wherever that's a laptop or your phone, back to a data center edge, the VeloCloud device that aggregates all the traffic. So the logical thing you'd say is, hey, let's build this function, right? Let's build this function and give it to the end users. But why do we reinvent the wheel? Because now VeloCloud is part of VMware. And VMware has already a product that allows you to do this for app tunneling. Something that allows you to authenticate the user, give it access only to the apps that they need, right? So this is kind of zero touch model as opposed to, hey, you're now part of the network, have access and visibility to everything, right? So only what you need to see will allow you to see. And in case the user misbehaves, I know they jailbreak their phone, malware happens, etc., right? This solution is intelligent enough to then take out that access. So they will not be able to come back and even compromise that small subset of data that we gave them access to. This is called Workspace ONE. It's a rebranding of AirWatch. So for those of you who have had experience with mobile device management before, I'm sure at least of AirWatch you have heard. They're kind of the leader of the Magic Quadrant for the last few years. And what we're doing here is that we are looking into ways to borrow that tunneling capability and actually use it inside VeloCloud. Now, before I describe how this works, it's good to understand that this tunneling capability requires you to have something called a Unified Access Gateway, a UAG, right? So take out the SD-WAN aspect, right? You just want to give this client VPN to your remote workforce, right? You pick up a server, you pick up, you spin up a VM, you get the UAG there, and the UAG is what authenticates the users and then acts as a VPN termination. The challenge with that is, first of all, you need to spend money to spin the service, and you need to obviously maintain it and troubleshoot it. And especially if you are a distributed environment, if you operate in different geographies, you want to have these UAGs as close as possible to your end users, right? Because if not, if I'm somewhere in Asia or in Latin America and I have to tunnel back to Europe, that's not really a great end user experience. And even if I do, right, I'm going back to the on-premise data center. I'm going back to this model that SD-WAN is trying to address, right? Why go back to a on-prem data center where your data might not even be there, right? Who's going to take care of that routing? What does the app think about all the latency that you're doing, right? So with this in mind, our new announcement is something that we call VMware Secure Access, right? So this is where us in VeloCloud will be hosting at no upfront cost to you, and this UAG element inside our points of presence. VeloCloud is a software-defined solution that is consumed mostly as kind of like a hosted cloud model, right? So you see there on top, you have the orchestrator, which is the way that you manage the devices, and you also have these gateways, which are the controller of the solution. These are hosted by us, right, by default in more than 100 data centers around the world. And the edges that you purchase connect automatically to the nearest gateway and obviously to the orchestrator that they belong. So the idea here is that we'll use the same points of presence to then put in that UAG, right? We build a redundant hosts. You have your UAGs there, and that gives you a unique advantage, because now all your hosts, right, all your remote users look like they are connected from a branch. So in the same way that you have a branch and today use SD-WAN to connect to different data centers, to apply firewall policies, to point at any sort of cloud security services like Zscaler, for example, you'll be able to do the same thing, but with your remote users. So now they're not separate, they are under the same policy and take the most optimal route to wherever their end destination is. They don't have to travel to your own on-prem data center and then hop across different VPNs to reach AWS, Azure, etc. And this actually brings me to kind of my final slide on kind of what's our vision. What's our vision now and what's our vision for the future? Now we have created a base that will allow us in the future to shoot towards this ideal of SASE. So at the moment, It doesn't matter where you come from, wherever you come from an office, you're lucky enough to be in an office, or you're at home and you're a power user, or you might be in transit or not a power user at all, right? You hit the same points of presence within VeloCloud, and that directs you to the most optimal path to any data centers or SaaS services. And our team is busy building other security features as well. So at the moment, for advanced security, things such as CASB, web gateways, remote browser isolation and stuff like that, we use third parties, again, like Zscaler, but we're looking heavily into how to build this in the same points of presence as well. So not on the end device itself, because that will be extremely resource intensive and will bring down the bandwidth. And I don't think anybody wants lower bandwidth at the branch. We'll build it as part of this uniform cloud offering. So when this is complete, you as a customer will be able to go to VMware and have everything under a single umbrella. More than this, I cannot comment because it's still roadmap, so I do not want to, set any unrealistic expectations here. But if you want to learn more, VMworld is next week as well. It's free attendance, so feel free to join one of our sessions and discuss this further. And now passing to Bob to describe how Microland can actually help you bring this vision into reality. Bob?
Thanks, Dimitri. That is definitely some awesome capability regarding the Zero Trust Network Access that you guys have integrated into your overall platform. Congratulations to the entire VeloCloud team. I'm sure clients are going to find that very useful. While I think the technology itself is very exciting, I think we all know when things go wrong in the infrastructure space, it's not usually technical issues that bite us, and instead it's problems are caused by the manner in which technology is deployed or the manner in which it's managed, right? So to that extent, I think it's very important to have a partner that can not only support technology well, but they also have their own level of value to add on top of the technology in terms of how it's managed. So I will be speaking about how Microland can add some unique capabilities in both accelerating and optimizing VeloCloud deployments in their ongoing management. Before getting into that, let's get into our second poll question. And let me pick it out here and launch that. What we're talking about here is the notion of Zero Trust Network Access is actually a fairly new concept. And go ahead and please read this and vote as I speak. We believe that most enterprises likely are still relying on traditional remote access VPN. But we're definitely curious to hear from you to kind of validate our assumptions. So what we're asking you is think about these different phases. Are you not considering it at all? Are you kind of thinking planning stage? Are you actually starting to maybe do some technology POCs? Are you doing some piloting of the technology? Maybe you're into your deployment, or maybe in fact you're completely done. So let's see, I'm going to give another maybe 10 or 15 seconds to have the poll finish up. And okay, looks like it's slowed down, so I will close that and now share the results. And yeah, I guess this is probably what I would have expected to see. Congratulations to those of you that are in active deployment, but I think it seems like most people are still kind of considering it or evaluating it. I think thanks to COVID, that has put that very much on people's radar screen. Definitely getting some echo, so if others could stop there. So with that, I think Dimitri, looks like good news for us. We may have some prospects coming into this webinar for our collective services. Now let's go on and talk about the actual deployment of this technology and ongoing management. I think as clients, you all want the same thing at some level, speed, visibility, and performance. And certainly there's a lot of capability that does in fact come out of the box, with the technology, with SD-WAN technology itself, whether that be things like zero-touch provisioning and centralized automation and orchestration to address speed, the fact that you get that application awareness and the analytics to help address visibility, and things like dynamic path optimization and the application of application policies that can help govern your user experience definitely helps for performance. But as I said, I don't think technology by itself is enough. You definitely need a service wrapper if you're going to have a holistic experience. So what does a service provider like Microland do? If you think about the speed aspect and you consider a deployment of SD-WAN, literally over 80% of the tasks that you would do in a deployment are very much process related. They have nothing to do with touching the keyboard of the technology. And these tasks are very voluminous. So it's important that you have methodologies to automate the vast majority of these steps in order to actually accelerate your deployment. And when you get into the run situation, I'm sorry, but there's not a technology in the world that won't ultimately have an incident or some change request associated with it. And in fact, these won't be onesie twosie. You're still going to have a volume of that. And so you also need to have strategies to implement automation and self-help and things like AI ops that will ultimately help lower mean time to isolate and detect, if not even avoid incidents or significantly reduce cycle times and change requests. Now, when it comes to visibility, I think the infrastructure world typically suffers from a lack of depth and real-time view when you're talking about the deployment of project status. Status reports, I think, are often days behind what's actually happening. And so in today's agile world, it's hard to make decisions if you're days behind. What if all of that information could really be literally at your fingertips and in real time? Wouldn't that be a better situation for visibility? And I think from a run perspective, most enterprise definitely struggle with having a global, consistent view of their estate and its performance. It's unfortunately not uncommon, at least in my personal experience, when providers give me their SLA reports, they seem to have this greenness to them, that everything's fine. When I know, as the person receiving that service, the service is not it's not that good. So what if, from a visibility standpoint, you could guarantee you had real-time access to global compliance, and it was transparently the truth of what actually the service was receiving, what was going on in your network. And then finally, when it comes to performance, I think one of the most important items from a deployment perspective is the ability to hit your say-do ratio. So if I tell you I can have your technology deployed by a given date, then I've set your expectations, and I absolutely need to hit that date. Too often, I think when generating project plans, providers either give, or maybe they're pressured to give, aspirational dates that are far from realistic. And then when you get into a run perspective, performance is all about knowing what your user experience levels are and having deep insights into what the levers are that actually can drive those levels. So what if you could have confidence in the dates that you were being given, and you also had confidence that you could turn your user experience governance over to somebody that had full capability to assure that as well. That's what Microland has built in a unique platform that can assure the speed, visibility, and performance from a service perspective for your SD-WAN and ZTNA solutions. And we call that our network assurance platform. So what does an app look like? What you're seeing here is, first, it's based on 3 pillars of service intelligence, visibility, and automation. Service intelligence, nothing more than the concept of having solved the problem before. I've gained experience and I know how to crack it. So maybe the second, third, fourth time I go to do a deployment, or the next time I need to handle an incident, I bring the benefit of the knowledge that I have, and I can do that a little bit easier. Visibility is obviously simply ensuring that we have both real-time updates of information with the right level of granularity and drill down. And that should be across dimensions of time, costs, quality, and both ITIL process as well as network performance. And then automation, as I've said, it's just not about the technology configuration and execution itself, but I really want to have full wing-to-wing IT process automation. Now, whether this is applied, on a very large scope, such as I'm kicking off some global program that's going to take quarters, or a smaller scope, it's just a simple service request that takes days. Both of these go through the same phases of planning, design, pre-checks of implementation, execution, and wrap up. And the more automation that we can bring to all of these phases, and not just the execution, the better our lives are going to become. So Microland has built NAP based on our multiple years of experience in deploying software-defined technologies, and we offer it in 4 distinct modules. The first module on the top left is transformation, and this is all about how do you accelerate your deployment from both that process as well as technology perspective. It's a complete online electronic runbook for doing transformations that guides every step and applies our experience. In terms of the benefits that it gives, if you think about the deployment engineers, and you're probably going to have multiple, it gives them things like automated discovery of the existing infrastructure. Often that can be an extremely manual and painstaking task and very much of an error-prone process, but that's completely automated. It can happen in minutes. Also supports automating testing on the back end as you go to validate each site, and the fact that it has better application performance going forward. And it also has OEM certified best practice templates inbuilt for things like HLD and LLD designs. If you think about the project managers, and again, you're going to have multiple, it's going to save them at least on the order of 30% of their time. It gets them out of working multiple manual Excel sheets and puts them operating in an online project plan where all of the tasks associated with the deployment are automatically and electronically assigned and tracked. This project plan is actually seeded with the expected effort based on the experience that we've had of how long a deployment should take, so that when you go to give a due date, you know it's based on some kind of fact-based reality and history. And then there's no need to create any status reports because it's all online and in real time. And for a client executive, that's a great benefit because they can see the real-time status of the project. They don't have to wait anything for any kind of report. Now, the other 3 modules are really all about run. The first one is analytics and dashboard. This encompasses over 100% or 100 out-of-the-box KPIs that span ITIL process and network performance, as well as user experience. NAP, in this respect, connects via APIs to all source data systems, like things like monitoring tools and ITSM platforms, to ensure that all the information is in real time and can create multiple levels of drill down information, as well as correlating information to generate insights into where problem spots are in your network so you can proactively remediate them. The operational excellence module is all about automation and AI ops for your environment. It blends the use of a core Ansible platform along with third-party tools, and it as well as Microland's own AI and ML platform. And this helps proactively determine the most salient of scenarios to help you either isolate root cause in real time and initiate automated remediation, or work towards preventing service health issues from ever reaching a material impactful condition. Finally, especially in the world of SD-WAN, we're seeing more and more the economic performance benefit of leveraging local ISP providers in broadband. So it's important not only to keep track of your vendors' ITIL and network performance alike, but also benchmark their performance as well as cost. That gives you the most leverage that you can have when negotiating for better terms in your estate. Now, NAP on the right, as you see, is just it's simply a platform software that we've developed. It runs on simple VMs on the cloud or on your premise. It leverages both these API connections I talked about to integrate with your legacy as well as newly deployed infrastructure, and as well as it uses GUIs to do the project management task execution, as well as real-time dashboards that we've been talking about. So with that, let's move on now, and let's kind of talk about how does NAP then actually work to help accelerate a deployment. So the first thing I think you see along the left is any client is going to want to achieve things like quality, going fast, ability to hit dates, being kept up to date, having life be hassle-free. And if you start breaking these things down, you can glean out what success factors would be required. And with that specificity, it becomes possible to understand how NAP is constructed with its features to absolutely assure that these qualities are met. Now, if I think about, NAP as that wing-to-wing guide, that's the electronic automated run book for conducting a complete transformation. Let's talk a moment about what's the requirements of this platform. What's it actually going to need to do for me? And it's really 6 things. Number 1, I'm going to need to gather a massive amount of information from my existing estate. That's technical data, router models, configurations. That's site level data about facility power, cooling. That's people related data when we're talking about our remote users, where do they live, what are their policies, and also application data. What are the critical applications either by site or by person that we need to prioritize for user experience. Second thing I'm going to need to do is create and build and test my design, but I just don't have one design. Think about the variability of design by different site branch types, as well as both those power users and remote users. So I'm going to need multiple designs. Third, I'm going to ultimately need to order all the circuits for my offices, devices, and software for my branches, and ensure the supply chain that has a capability to deliver these things. Fourth, I'm going to have to coordinate all the activity across multiple organizations to have all this material converge at the right time, at the right location, turn up the site, or have support easy do-it-yourself home installations. Fifth, I'm going to need that detailed plan that covers all of these things, and make sure that I have the ability. Not everything goes according to Hoyle, so I'm going to have the ability to adjust my plan almost on a daily basis. And then finally, I'll need to keep everybody up to date. So if you think about that, all of that involves thousands and thousands of steps that all have to be done in a very short period of time, and it's got to be done flawlessly. So what you see on the page then is kind of a list of success factors that are needed for the program to be executed on time and without business impact. So in the interest of time, I'll probably just talk about two of these. The first is the most overarching, is I've got to have a single source of truth of all of my information, actions, tasks, resources, organizations, documents. All of that information has got to be encompassed in one platform that's at everybody's fingertips. Now, typically, such information is scattered across people's desktops in multiple organizations, and significant time can easily be wasted chasing information, as well as unintentional errors can be made as people start to drift from putting their own personal print on things. So this includes the existing inventory of sites, users, configurations, designs, project plans, applications, partners, circuit orders, equipment, all of this, and task of who's working on what. But NAP is not just a document repository. It has a complete phase-by-phase electronic structure that inputs and processes information in a highly coordinated fashion to enable the execution of deployment with efficiency. When you're talking about a second element, when you're talking about deploying ZTNA to home users, it may sound easy to simply apply specific application-based policies that are unique to each user. But when you think about what's actually needed to make that happen, it's not so easy. Doing it for one user, sure, go into a GUI. But if you want to keep that administration from being too manual, it's important to use automation. Establish some means to natively add a user profile to your identity store, maybe like AD, and that can be the source of their profile, and put in what applications are important to them. Maybe have some self-help where you can self-prescribe your own critical applications, and only then can that source of information be pushed automatically into VeloCloud's orchestrators, underlying orchestration engines, to their user gateways and edge devices. So that, and there's many more features that we could talk about for deployment. Well, let's move on and talk about what's going on in a run perspective. So if we look at, how does MicroLAN add value into ongoing management of SD-WAN and ZTNA? In the interest of time, again, I'll probably focus on a couple of areas. First, I think the most important is predictive control. As network people, we know that for any incident, it always starts with the network is to blame, right? It's all about getting to that mean time to incidents to prove that it's not really us. I've personally been on way too many outage bridges where engineers from different silos, like compute, desktop, application security, they all get on the call together and they try to figure out why something that was working 5 minutes ago suddenly has stopped working. Now, NAP is very powerful in this respect. With a simple and literal "what's changed" command that you type at the prompt, NAP will tell you immediately what has changed in the last few minutes. And as it relates to things like performance, usage, configurations, topologies, relationships, it'll tell you exactly what has changed at the time that the incident started to occur. So it becomes very easy to pinpoint quickly the root cause of incidents and whether that in fact has occurred in the network or at the desktop, compute, or application level. I think the maintenance of user experience is also critically important as we're talking about those home users. In a pre-COVID world, the level of service that an end user might expect from the IT department pragmatically is probably less than what they would have expected in the office. Obviously, corporate IT didn't set up the home network. They didn't provision the connectivity to the home. They're not responsible for those other users that are driving, Netflix and gaming traffic. They don't necessarily have invested in the proper monitoring tools to even understand what's happening inside that environment. But in a post-COVID world, that's such an approach is never going to be able to generate the availability to critical applications that you're going to need to maintain your business. As a simple example, I can think about specifically a person who joins your large team calls in the last few months who constantly has poor connectivity to their home, and how much that person has disrupted the call or business from being conducted when they constantly can't be heard, but they're very critical to the conversation. So NAP has the ability to integrate with excellent monitoring tools that come inbuilt with Velo Cloud Platform, when ingested with the data about the environment, will ensure that your user experience is definitely going to be maintained. With that, here's a couple of screenshots of what the NAP actually looks like. I would encourage anybody out there in the audience who is interested, please drop an email to the events@microland.com. We'd be very happy to do an online demo for you in the coming days and weeks. And with that, I'll turn it back over to KK.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Dimitri. Great insights. Thanks for sharing those insights. Dimitri, it was nice to know about the launch of the Zero Trust access built into the Velo Cloud. Great solution. And thanks for sharing some of those exciting stuffs that are coming up in the roadmap as well. So as we wait for the questions, Bob, also thanks for sharing this for the audience. Another point, if you could clarify, it would be great. Do you see the platform? You saw not only right from onboarding and in the transformation project, the NAP helps, but also in the ongoing management as well, right? But is there any specific criteria in terms of what size of transformation projects NAP is suitable?
Yeah, I think the value of NAP definitely would, when you talk about the deployment perspective, right? Bigger is better, right? Because if I'm automating, all the tasks associated with 500 sites or whatnot, then I'm going to compress that cycle more. But we have used NAP in a deployment for even 50 sites, 80 sites, and we find that it's that ability to assure the due date that's excited clients. Now, I think size matters less when you get into ongoing run, because you're talking about, I want to maintain my user experience, I want to have automation, and everybody cares about those things. It doesn't, your network is your network. It's the only network that you have. So you don't care whether you're, 50 sites, 500 sites, or 5,000 sites. Everybody wants good performance. So I think that's the right way to think about that.
Excellent. Thank you. And here is the next question from James. There are so many SD-WAN players in the market that I find it overwhelming. What are the major tangible differentiators that have made Velo the market leader? Maybe Dimitri, I'll point this to you.
I totally agree. I think its market is somewhat overcrowded and with a lot of mixed messaging. I think sometimes people go the other way and kind of mold SD-WAN based on what they have to offer as opposed to the other way around. If I was just purely focused on Velo Cloud and what made us successful so far, I think is the performance aspect and also the flexibility as well. So if you look at deployments from, ranging from like 20, 30 sites all the way to thousands, we can play really well. Although the solution is hosted to start with, we can bring it fully on premise if the customer has any sort of issues with data privacy, etc. So really great government contracts inside financial sector on that. And it's a lot related to how we help people transition to the cloud. So I mentioned about all these elements that we host. Today, we use those elements to do an easy cloud on ramp right? So extend these benefits of SD-WAN, not when you just talking to your data center, but also when you're talking to any sort of third party across the internet. And different vendors have different ideas on how to solve this, if they have an idea at all. But I do strongly believe that the solution that we have is, I'd say, the most elegant that there is there on the market.
Excellent. Thank you. That really helps. Yeah. So the next question is from. Okay, here it goes. My enterprise. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to see, I see here one, there's a question about what is Microland's experience in helping digital transformation with SD-WAN. This jazzes me up, right? So I'm gonna break in and make sure we answer this one. You know, I think what I've seen is when most enterprises go to do their cost benefit analysis or ROI, the mistake I see them making is they treat it like it's just another IT cost project. Right, so they look at the IT cost out, you know, associated with MPLS to transport or to ISP. They think about the operations agility from the IT operations perspective of, you know, how do I shorten my IT service time, or they think about user experience from an internal employee perspective, and that's all great. And you know, I'd say probably 80–90% of business cases for SD-WAN have been based on that. But Kumaran that asked this question, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's so much more important to think about, if I'm going to build myself a more resilient and performant network, how is that actually helping my end business? Because if you think about you know, costs within a business, you know, anywhere from 2 to 4% of the costs are IT costs. That leaves 94 to 96% of the costs. That's where the real, you know, top line benefit revenue or bottom line hits. So a couple of examples, and if you look at it, ISG use case, Microland actually won a digital transformation award working with one of our environmental companies because we helped them add more robots into their recycling centers that help them separate recycle from waste. That not only improved the efficiency of their business operation, it raised their compliance score, which gave them better stature in the marketplace. And we also helped them to automate the use of compactors at landfills so that somebody didn't have to be on site, especially in COVID times, and they could remote control these compactors. And again, it was all driven by having a more performant, resilient network. So whether you're in, you know, airports, whether you're in healthcare, you know, whether you're in retail, think about the business use cases. Think about how a better network would drive business productivity. And that's what you need to focus on when you're making your business case.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. That really is a great question. You picked it up. The next one to Dimitri, perhaps with regards to remote, this is a question from Sejong. With regards to remote access services, how is it licensed? Is it part of the standard offering or licensed separately? Part of the same question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, second part of that is, how security is addressed in the Velo Cloud deployment. Do you have next generation firewall and secured internet gateway services as part of the new offering?
That's a great question, and let's take them one by one. So first of all, when it comes to the remote access, there are two main components. First of all, it's you need at the moment to have a Workspace ONE license for those devices that allows you to tunnel. So this is advanced and onwards, not just the basic one. Once you have that, or you intend to purchase this, then there is an extra license, again, per user per year, that goes towards us hosting that service. But again, no other costs, because we'll be spinning off and taking care of all this UAG and extra elements that, this construct or constructs that will spin around, depending on your location as well, right? Because if you're, if you are in a distributed environment, you'll have the option to kind of select where in the world you want us to kind of spin this off for you. Obviously, there are plans in the future roadmap to do have a version that works on different MDMs as well. So if you don't have Workspace ONE and you just don't want to change to it, There will be an option in the next couple of months that will allow you to have just that particular connector to create the network connection. And again, that will be just licensed on a per user per year basis. Secondly, in regards to next generation security, you are correct. There are elements within our platform that we built over the last versions of code, such as stateful firewall, full segmentation, etc. So there are security elements already baked in. But as you noticed there, we originally are a very focused company, right? That's what made us successful, because we're SD-WAN purists. But with that in mind, rather than lock you in a certain security option, hey, you need security from us on top of the SD-WAN you get from us, we always looked in the ecosystem, right? So we said, you know what, if you want on-premise security, here's a box that does VNFs, right? So you can go to Palo Alto, Fortinet, or Checkpoint, get a VNF tested by us, and you can just easily implement it in a few clicks. Or as next generation security and kind of cloud firewall, everything moves to the firewall. If you need to connect to any of these services, most of the things are automated, right? So the idea that we have is that if you can take one click to automate something, which obviously is a silly example because at least some credentials you need to plug in somewhere, we want you to have that experience, right? This is the state today, right? So if you want next generation security, there is an easy way, and the guys at Microland can obviously help you decide what's better and kind of have a integrated solution for you. In the short-term roadmap, in the next couple of months, to hopefully by early next year, we'll be building these features as well as part of our global cloud infrastructure, right? So it's the same way that today you need to use cloud services from third parties to secure your network. You'll be able to have the same option, but within VMware. And obviously, we're not going to discontinue what we have today. So you'll still have options to either consume it in-house or go to a different security provider. Hopefully that answers the question.
Awesome. Thank you. So there's one last question, probably 2 more minutes left. This is from Rangaraj MS. The question is this a solution, primarily meant just for the enterprises, or can this be also deployed in public spaces like the airports?
Is that for me or Bob?
Yep, go on, Dimitri.
I mean, it's SD-WAN solutions, right? And the kind of even remote access solutions are made to kind of connect multiple places together, right? So it depends. If you just have the one airport or the one site, or just maybe even 2 or 3 sites, to be honest, it might not be as relevant, but
yeah, I think the question is slightly different. So can this be deployed in the airport for the travelers to have a secured access, maybe like a subscription for the travelers to have a secured access from the launch or something like that? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, let me jump in there. I think. I mean, if I think about, I'm an operator and I run dozens or hundreds of airports around the globe, then absolutely, I think it's a great technology. And why? Think about, I have multiple streams of data that are coming out of that airport. Only one of them is guests, right? The passengers. There's another one that's all about the IoT information that's being, shared, that's driving the efficiency of that airline. There's also, the ticketing people, right? I mean, all these are business critical operational functions. And one of the great abilities of SD-WAN capability is the ability to segment, what's going on, and to care for the user experience for those, and the security, right? I mean, especially the stuff that's running the airline, that better be segmented and probably under some kind of regulatory control. Where the users, maybe you're giving them a different SSID as guests in the airport. You want them to have a good experience as well. You're traveling and you want to watch Netflix, right? You want that experience. So SD-WAN is an awesome technology, I think, to take care of not just the guests, the passengers, but everything that's going on in an airport. So absolutely relevant.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And it was a fantastic session. Thanks for all the guests who have joined us today on this event. We are on time, and there are a couple of more questions for which we probably drop in a note. answering your questions to your specific email ID. It was a great session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.